Hello friends, how you doing today? I know you can't see it too well, but there's just a beautiful sunset starting to go down here in central Michigan. There's always equipment to be repaired. He brought home this Echo blower. This is the model PB250 LN, and this is a mid-level homeowner grade machine, I would say. It's got a nice control on here where you can rotate this. It's a 65 decibel noise reduction, which isn't very loud at all. It's pretty quiet for a leaf blower. And you can see it's not very old. Manufacture date is May 2015. And apparently, from the story I got, was one of the guy's helpers put straight gas in it and ran it with straight gas, which is really sad because straight gas is not cool when you have a two-stroke engine that needs a gas and oil mixed. And I don't know if you're going to be able to hear what's going on with it, but I'm going to try and show you if I can pull it and have you guys hear it, because it's not a pretty sight. It's really kind of sad. We're going to set that to on. We're going to set the throttle lock all the way forward, and we're going to see if it'll start. Alright, I'm pulling out, trying to start it, and it wants to start, but it just won't go. Let's see if you can hear this. Hear that? It tries to start, but it just won't go. And the compression feels low. And when you pull it over slow, you've got a rattly, clunky noise coming out of the flywheel area or the piston area. We're going to have to pull it apart a little bit and look inside at the piston and ring situation. But I got a feeling either the ring is shot or the crank bearings and the rod assembly might be shot. Either way, it's probably going to be more to fix than what it's worth. They sell a short box for this, which is about $96. And then just the crankshaft assembly is $70, so that's not the way to go. But is it worth putting a short block in it for $100 plus a little bit of labor when these are only about $140 brand new? I don't think so, really. I don't think it's worth it. You'd be better off buying a new one like this and saving this one for spare parts in case anything ever breaks or goes bad. That'd be my recommendation. I mean, you've got a perfectly good carburetor and intake setup, you've got the fuel tank, the framework, all the housing, throttle trigger assembly, the discharge chute, the fan, everything's here and everything's in really good condition. So my recommendation is going to be that he gets another one just like this and keeps this one for parts. But we're going to take it apart and have a look and see if there's anything that might change that recommendation. Alright, remove the spark plug. And then we're going to remove the carburetor assembly and the multiple screws around here, the Torx head screws that hold the case cover over. After you remove the carburetor air filter cover, there's two more Torx head screws here to remove the carburetor itself. I'm just going to leave the carburetor dangle here as I remove the rest of the shrouding and covers and the tube. The tube has a little push lock mechanism that you lift up gently and then the tube slides right out. Lay the cover aside, set the throttle rod aside, remembering which way it came off. Keep an eye on this throttle trigger because this could easily fall off, so we're just going to pull that out. Make a note of where the wiring is routed through here so you can see that one there has actually been pinched. The wiring goes through these two grooves here, and one of them is not in the groove, so you need to put that back in the groove. If one of those wires gets broken, then your shutoff switch won't work. Remove these two screws here to remove the muffler. Alright, now we're going to remove the back side of the shroud with all these Torx screws on this side. Now we set that cover aside. Now we're going to remove the fan with a 13mm socket. That'll expose the 4 motor mount holes here, which are also Torx bit, I believe. Yes, those are also the Torx bit T27, I think. Possibly T25s. remove the heat shield from the top of the cylinder head. Set the remaining housing assembly aside, and that leaves us with the motor itself. Do a quick visual inspection around the crankshaft seal, make sure there's no fluid leaking. And although this is almost a brand new motor, we wouldn't expect to have any kind of crank seal leaks on this. Now it's just going to be a matter of removing the 4 screws that hold the cylinder head on. And those are hex heads, not Torx. So we're going to need the right size. That's not it. It's a small one. I think this is a 4mm. There we go. And we're going to take those off. Now we're going to remove the cylinder base gasket and then clear all that carefully. Carefully scrape and remove the residual gasket material from the base without damaging the metal surfacing of the base, using either a plastic tool or a chemical stripper or something to get that clean without damaging it. And then we'll also, the cylinder head itself seems to be in pretty good shape inside. We might run a hone through it just to clean it up a little, make it look fresh. And then the piston itself looks to be very, very clean. You know, I don't know, it doesn't have the telltale signs of overheating and low oil, but it has no compression. And I'm thinking it sure feels like the rings were out. I checked the ring gap in it, and the old ring has a lot more gap to it than the new ring does on the end gap measurement. So we're going to go ahead and clean the groove out here with a plastic brush and some solvent, and we're going to re-ring it. To measure the ring gap, you use a set of feeler gauges, and you insert the ring so that the top side of it is facing up. The locking mechanism faces up, so you get a close gap there. And I usually use the piston to push it in just a little way so it's even all the way around, nice and straight, and all the way down past the port so you can get a good reading on it. The ring gap on the old ring is 0.005 inch. The ring gap on the new ring is 0.005 inch. The ring gap on the old ring is 0.012. So quite a bit of difference there. Alright, our surface is all clean here now. You want to blow it out real good and make sure no gasket material has fallen down into the transfer ports or anywhere else where it could interact with the engine later and cause problems. On this one here, the retainer clip for the piston is on the top facing down. So when you put the ring back on, you want to set it up so that the longest part or the tightest part of the piston gap is facing downward, so it catches that retainer properly and uses it as a stop so the ring won't rotate. Now we're going to zoom in and see if you can see how it's set up there. I don't know if the focus will work or not, but probably not. Maybe you can see it right there. Now we're going to take a light coating of 2-cycle engine oil on our finger. Now we're going to smear it all around inside the cylinder jug so that the piston and new ring are properly lubricated and there's no chance of any gouging or damage in there before the engine oil starts lubricating everything when we start it back up. We set the new cylinder base gasket in place. It should not require any RTV. And now we're going to gently twist and rotate the cylinder head down into place. Hand tighten the bolts in an X pattern, going like back and forth until they're just starting to pull it down against the base gasket. And then do the same thing again in all 4 corners to pull it down tighter and tighter until you're applying a maximum torque to tighten it down. First of everything you did, making sure you route all these wires the right way so they're not going to get pinched. And this here is kind of like up in the air a little bit off the cylinder head and going right up through its little groove. And the rubber grommets are back in place. We bolted on the motor. Now we're going to bolt on the exhaust, the carburetor, the cover plate, and then the fan and the other cover plate on the other side.